Hello student, welcome to another session of the nerve muscle physiology. In this we will see about the properties of the action potential. And the first and foremost important property of the action potential is that it is all or none law. It follows all or none law. What is meaning of all or none law? If a subthreshold stimulus is given, no action potential will be generated. But if a threshold stimulus is given, the action potential will be generated and it will have its maximum amplitude. And now even if a suprathreshold stimulus is given, the amplitude of the action potential will not change. It will remain same. That means either it will not be generated, none, or if at all it is generated, it will be all to its maximum. This is called as all or none law. This is in contrast to the local potential. The local potential will depend upon the strength of the stimulus. If the strength of the stimulus is stronger one, higher amount of the local potential that will be generated. If the strength of the stimulus is weaker one, lower amount of the local potential will be generated. But this is not the case with the action potential. If a subthreshold is given, no action potential will be generated. The action potential will be generated only for the threshold stimulus. And if a suprathreshold stimulus is given, there is no further increase in the action or size of the action potential. So this is called as the all or none law. Once it is generated, it will have its typical shape and the size and the amplitude, which is not going to change. Next important property of the action potential is refractory period. Now what do you mean by refractory? Refractory is non-responsive. So the membrane will become non-responsive for some time. Non-responsive to what? To next stimulus. So what is the definition of refractory period? Non-responsive means what? It will not get excited. It will not generate the second action potential. If the second stimulus is immediately given after the first stimulus, after that, so it all depends upon the membrane to membrane, and we call it as the refractory period. What is refractory period? It is the time after the first stimulus during which the second stimulus of the same strength is not responsive. Not responsive means what? It is not able to generate the action potential. So what's my definition? It is the time after the first stimulus during which the second stimulus is not responsive. Now this is called as refractory period. But it was seen that if I give a stronger stimulus than the initial first stimulus, then after some time, for some time the membrane is absolutely not responding. So in that case, even if I give a stronger stimulus, there is no response. But if I give a stronger stimulus, then the membrane can become responsive after some time. So my refractory period is again divided into absolute refractory period, where the membrane is absolutely refractive. Even if I use a stronger stimulus, I don't get a response. And then the relative refractory period. What is relative refractory period? It is the time between the absolute refractory period and the end of the refractory period, between which the membrane will be responsive to a stronger stimulus than the initial one. To clear the concepts, let's look at it here in this figure. What you see? Let's see. Suppose this is the action potential and this is the point of stimulus. So what is my refractory period? It is the time after the first stimulus during which the second stimulus of the same strength is not responding. That means if it is in this case, O to B is the refractory period, is the total refractory period. What is the meaning of that? If I give a second stimulus of the same strength here, if I give it at this point, at this point, at this point, I don't get any action potential. But if I give a second stimulus at this point now, I get a second action potential. So this is my refractory period. Now this refractory period is again divided into two. From O to A is called as absolute refractory period. That means in this period, even if I give a stronger stimulus, I don't get any response. But in this period between A to B, it was seen that if I give a stronger stimulus, then I get a second action potential, but not with the same strength of stimulus as that of O. So what this period is called as? This period is called as relative refractory period. Question is, what is the cause of this refractory period? Now if you recall, what causes the depolarization is the opening of the sodium channels. This sodium channels, voltage gated sodium channels have got the activation gate and the inactivation gate. Now, for some time, this inactivation gate will remain closed. So, if I give a stimulus, the activation gate will open, the inactivation gate will close down, and they will remain closed for some time. Even if I give a second stimulus between that time, since the inactivation gate are closed now, sodium influx cannot take place and the second action potential cannot be generated. So, this is the basic reason for why there is a refractory period. What is the cause of the absolute refractory period? The inactivation gate will remain totally closed. Even if I give a stronger stimulus, they will not open. But in relative refractory period, a stronger stimulus given, there is some influx of the sodium ion and the second action potential that can be generated. A point to recall here is that since the duration of the action potential in the cardiac muscle fiber is long, it can last for 100 to 400 milliseconds. So, since the duration of the cardiac muscle action potential is long, and not only that, but they have got an additional phase which is called as plateau. So, because of that, these two reasons now, the cardiac muscle fiber will have the longer refractory period. And what is the importance of this longer refractory period? Is that the cardiac muscle, if a stimulus is given to the cardiac muscle will contract and it will relax. This is called a simple muscle twitch. But the contraction phase of the cardiac muscle fiber is less than that of the refractory period. So what is the meaning of that? The muscle will contract and then it will start relaxing. Even if a second stimulus is given now, it will be effective only after the refractory period. So there is some relaxation of the muscle. So what is the meaning of that? That cardiac muscle cannot be thrown in a smooth and sustained state of contraction. There will be some relaxation of the cardiac muscle fiber, even if repeated number of stimuli are given to that. So this smooth and sustained state of muscle contraction is called as tetanization. So in short, what I can say, cardiac muscle cannot be tetanized. Why it cannot be tetanized is because of the long refractory period. What is the importance of this long refractory period? Why the cardiac muscle should not be tetanized? If you recall the function of the heart, systole is the contraction, diastole is the relaxation. What is the function of diastole? Diastole causes filling of the heart. In diastole, there is more blood supply to the cardiac muscle. So if there is no diastole, if the heart remains in sustained state of contraction, it is not of any use because it will not be able to pump out any blood. So the diastole is also very important. So this is the reason why the cardiac muscle should not be tetanized. Next important property is the Rho base and Cronexin. Before we say that, let's revise some points. Threshold intensity is proportional to the duration of the stimulus. How it is related to that? If a weak stimuli is applied to generate the action potential in the nerve, it should be applied for the longer duration of time. It will require longer duration of time. If a strong stimuli is applied, then that strong stimuli will require a shorter duration to generate the action potential. Very strong stimuli, but for very short time, it is not effective. It will not be able to generate the action potential. But if I give a very slowly rising currents, that means slowly increasing current, if I give from low level to the high level, the intensity is going on increasing. In this case also the action potential will not be generated. Why this not be generated? This is the property of the accommodation. Mainly the inactivation gate, they will close down and they will remain closed for the sodium channels. And we will say that the membrane has got accommodated to the slowly rising current. Now, when we speak about the current strength at duration curve, we speak about the Rho base and Cronexin, by which we can know even the excitability of the nerve. What is Rho base and what is Cronexin? If you look into this figure, on the x-axis, this is the duration or this is the time. On the y-axis, this is the strength. Now what I do is that I go on increasing the strength of stimulus. I start from the minimum strength of stimulus. And then I note down the minimum stimulus, which is, if given for longer duration of time, infinite duration of time, is just able to generate that action potential. So this value is called as Rho base. What is Rho base? It is the minimum stimulus which, if it is given for the infinite duration of time, it is just able to generate the action potential, that is called as Rho base. Now I take double the strength of the Rho base. Let's say the value of the Rho base is x millivolt. So now I will take about the 2x millivolt, that means the strength. Naturally, it is a stronger stimuli, so it will be able to generate the action potential in a shorter time now. And now what I note down is the time actually in which the double the strength of Rho base has generated the action potential. So this T value is known as chronic C. Chronic C will differ from nerve to nerve, and it will determine the excitability of the nerve. Next important property of the action potential is propagation or spread. Now, in an axon, normally the action potential will be generated in the initial segment, that is just after the cell body. The initial segment is there. If at all the summated activity of the initial segment, the facilitation, excitation, inhibition, all that will be summated, and ultimately the action potential will be generated into the initial segment. Once the action potential is generated in the initial segment, how does it traverse towards the end? That is towards the terminal. So this is the conduction of the action potential. We will see the conduction of the action potential. So if you look at in this figure, what is if nerve membrane is polarized at rest? At rest, suppose this is the nerve membrane which is polarized. Inside is negative, outside is positive. And now what will happen if at all the action potential is generated? Let's say in this case we give a stimulus at this point. Stimulus, electrical stimulus. That electrical stimulus will cause the flowing of some positive ions, and they will go inside, and ultimately what will happen? This is the situation just like a depolarization, where inside has become positive, outside has become negative. So let's say the action potential has started at this point where the red arrow is indicating. Now what will happen? Inside has become positive, outside has become negative. So the local current or the circular current will start flowing from that. Circular current inside the cell, circular current outside the cell. What you see here, the current will flow from positive to negative points. The current will flow from positive to negative points. What will happen at this point then after some time? That since the current is flowing from positive to negative here, this point will become positive. Since the current is flowing from positive to negative here, this point will become negative, and this point will become positive. So what has happened here? Positivity inside, negativity outside. A situation similar to that of the depolarization. So these circular currents can go on flowing. This can flow in both the directions. But normally in axon, since the action potential is generated at the initial segment, it will travel towards the periphery. But if I stimulate a nerve along its pathway at anywhere, the action potential can travel in both the direction. It is because of the local currents or the circular flow of the current. So this is the mechanism by which the action potential can spread. So such local currents will go on spreading the action potential across the membrane. As I have told you, normally in an axon what will happen? The action potential will generate in the initial segment and it will move towards the periphery. So this is called as orthodromic conduction. That means the normal conduction, action potential moves towards the distal end, as you can see in this figure. This is the arrow for the orthodromic conduction. But in the experimental purpose, if I stimulate the nerve along its pathway anywhere, even the action potential can go towards soma or the body. So in this case, it will be called as antidromic conduction. So what is antidromic conduction? Reverse conduction towards the body. That is this. Now, action potential in unmyelinated fibers. Myelination, which is an important factor, remains an important factor. Schwann cells will form myelin sheath, and this myelin is a good insulator, except at some points it will which will be called as the nodes of Ranvier. The myelin sheath will not be present at those points. So the myelination is an important phenomena by which the velocity of conduction can be increased. How does the myelination increases the velocity of conduction? We will see here. Let's see what will happen in the unmyelinated fibers. The local or the circular currents will be flowing from each step. So they will take long time to reach from one point to another point. There are few voltage gated channels present. There is also leakage of the charge because there is no myelination. Myelination is a good insulator. So leakage of the charge, again it will decrease the velocity of the conduction. But what will happen if there is a myelination? As you can see in this figure now, this is the myelin sheath, which is an insulator. And what are these? These are called as nodes of Ranvier. So there is no myelin sheath present here. And if you look at now the circular current will jump from one node to another node. So what will happen because of that now? The velocity of conduction will be faster one. Not only that, but because of this myelination, there is no leakage of the charge. So again, that becomes an advantage. So, and the thickness of if it is increasing the myelinated fibers, then the resistance that will be decreased, and then the myelinated fibers can again conduct the action potential at the faster rate. So what is basically this action potential jumping from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier? This type of conduction is called as saltatory conduction. And because of the saltatory conduction, myelinated fibers can have more than 50 times faster. They can conduct the action potential compared to that of the unmyelinated fibers. So the speed of conduction of action potential depends on what? What are the factors? As you can see here, it will depend upon the distance between the node of Ranvier. If the distance is more, the circular current can go farther. It can jump more, longer, and because of that, the velocity of conduction rate can increase. Even the thickness of the myelin sheet, more thicker it is, because of that, better insulation, and because of that, the better will be the conduction, right? So in the myelinated fibers, conduction velocity is proportional to the diameter of the axon. Because of the thickness of the myelin sheath and even the diameter is increased, the resistance to the flow that will also be decreased. But in unmyelinated fibers, conduction velocity is inversely proportional to the square root of the diameter. So this is the important difference between the myelinated and unmyelinated fibers. But what we have seen about the action potential is that we have seen about the action potential in a single muscle fiber. But your nerve is actually the mix of the number of nerve fibers. What we have seen is that we have seen action potential in a single nerve fiber. But actually a nerve consists of number of nerve fibers which has got different velocity of conduction. Either they can be myelinated, they can be unmyelinated, they can be thicker, they can be thinner. So depending upon that, we have got various types of nerve fibers, which will mainly depend upon their diameter, myelination, unmyelination, and the thickness that is related to that. So actually what we record if we stimulate a nerve is that the action potential will be generated in all these nerve fibers, and what we record is the mixture or compound action potential, we will call it as. You will be able to better understand if you look at this figure now. What we do in that, this is my nerve, which now contains the number of nerve fibers, different nerve fibers, which are having a different thickness, as you can see here. And now this is my stimulating electrode. What I do is that I give a strong stimulus. Because of that, what will happen? The action potential will be generated in all the nerve fibers, and the action potential will start their pathway. They will start running towards the recording device. This is my recording device. But it is just like a horse race, you can imagine. All the horses, they have started running. But as you can see here, that some nerves can conduct the action potential at a faster rate. Some nerves can conduct the action potential at a slower rate. So the one nerve which can conduct the action potential, one nerve fiber which can conduct the action potential at the fastest rate, that action potential will reach first here. Then followed by the one which will conduct the nerve fiber which conduct the action potential at the slower rate. So this is like a horse race now. When the some distance is being, initially everyone was at the equal level. But when the some distance is being passed now, some horses will go forward, some horses will lag behind. So similar process will occur here. And what the recording device records is the compound action potential. So what are the potential changes which will occur here? It will depend upon where the recording device I keep. Suppose if I keep the recording device very near to the stimulator, then all the action potential will reach almost at the same time, and I will get this type of the graph. But if I go farther now, the distance between the one which is carrying the action potential faster rate and the one which is moving at a slower rate will become more prominent, and then I will record this type of the graph. The distance again will become more prominent as I go farther. So if a recording device is kept at the farther away, I can record this type of the graph, and this is called as compound action potential. This is not a single action potential now, but this is the compound action potential of the nerve. So as you can see here, depending upon now which fibers they carry the action potential at the fastest rate now, this is the graph of the action potential now, and as you can see that if we apply maximum stimulus, the compound action potential I get is this. This is the initially I get the record of the A alpha fibers, which are the thicker one and which are myelinated one, which can carry the action potential at the faster rate. So I will get the record of those fibers. Then I will get the record of A beta fibers, A gamma fibers, A delta fibers, B fibers, and last is the C fibers, which are the unmyelinated fibers, right? So this is the way I get the compound action potential. Remember, this compound action potential is not all or none law, because the threshold level for different nerve fibers may vary. So for the same stimulus, the one nerve fiber may respond, but the other nerve fiber may not respond. But so that's why it is a all or none law. Now here we see the different type of nerve fibers now. As I told you, the nerve fibers, they are divided into different types depending upon their conduction velocity, mainly myelination. So A alpha fibers, if you look at it to this table, what is their function? They carry proprioception and they are somatic motor fibers. What is their diameter? Diameter is maximum 12 to 20. Myelinated fibers, these are the. What is the velocity at which they conduct this? They conduct at a fastest velocity, 120 meters per second, right? And they have got the absolute refractive period of less than 1 millisecond. A beta fibers, these are for touch and pressure. The diameter is less than 12 micrometer. And what is the velocity at which they conduct? They conduct the velocity with the 70 meters per second. A gamma fibers, these are motor to muscle spindles. They have the diameter of less than 6 micrometer, and the velocity which they conduct is 30 meter per second. A delta fibers, these are for the pain, cold and touch. They have the diameter of less than 5 and the conduction velocity is less than 30 meters per second. B fibers, which are called as the preganglionic fibers. These are the one having the conduction velocity of less than 15 meters per second. And the unmyelinated C fibers are the pain, which will carry slow pain, temperature, and they are the postganglionic fibers, which are very small in diameter and the conduction velocity is very slow. Certain fiber types, which are its location and the different type of classification. There is also another nomenclature for this nerve fibers. This is called as numerical nomenclature. So if you look at this table, A alpha fibers, which are also can be called as type 1A and 1B fibers, whereas A beta fibers, they can be also called as type 2 fibers. A delta fibers, they are also called as type 3 fibers, as the sensory fibers mainly. This nomenclature holds mainly true for the sensory system, whereas C fibers, they carry mainly they are also called as type 4 fibers. Now, different type of nerve fibers, their sensitivity is different to different. We can say that some are more sensitive to hypoxia, some are more sensitive to pressure, and some are more sensitive to local anesthetics. As you can see in this table now, type B fibers are the one which are more susceptible for the hypoxia, then followed by the A fibers, and the least susceptible are the C fibers. When it's come to the pressure, A types of the fibers are the one which are more susceptible one. But when it comes to the local anesthetics, C type of the fibers which will carry slow pain and temperature, which will are the one which are most susceptible for the anesthetics. So this information can be useful if we want to give anesthesia or if you analyze what are the effect of the pressure over the nerve. So with this we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you.